Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I am the Skeptic, and welcome to a review during the best time of the year, Halloween! Boy, there sure are a lot of scary movies, ranging all the way from the Gold Age to the Silver Age to the age that I grew up with, the Bronze Age. Our generation truly was number 3. Back in the day, some of these classics really molded the horror genre, especially the slasher subgenre. They pushed the envelope, shocked audiences with new ideas, techniques, and iconic antagonistic characters. There's no doubt, though, that in today's selection of scary movies, we have tons of good and bad ones. And sometimes we're a little desensitized by the overwhelming amount of entertainment we're provided. So with that in mind, I pose the question, do these classics hold up in the oversaturated film market? Well, I decided, why not take a look at a few? And what better one to start with than the title that commemorates the holiday? Halloween! Usually I would start with some kind of skit, specifically dealing with the infamous killer, Michael Myers. But that's overdone. Still though, obligation. Let's begin. First off, the opening credits are awesome. That theme song is so simple and suspense building, like the Jaws theme, and as we slowly zoom out on a lone jack-o'-lantern. These credits really represent the film well. Simple, yet effective, and a little slow, but we'll get to that. The film starts with one of the film's signature techniques, a voyeuristic point-of-view shot, while wearing a mask, which is cool. The stalker watches a young woman having sex with her boyfriend, only to wait for him to leave, and then approach her and stab her to death. This movie delivers the goods right away, am I right? The killer walks out to the parents arriving, only to reveal it was a 6-year-old kid all along, who looks surprisingly confused about what he did. Now, a lot of people comment on why Michael stares at his hand while stabbing his sister. Yes, his sister, instead of staring at where he's stabbing. Doesn't make a lot of sense at first. But I always assume that this kid has the natural urge to kill, doesn't understand what he's doing, or the reality behind it. So when he kills his sister, he does so without emotion, but more with a curiosity of what he's doing. If you're ready for spoilers, in 3, 2, fuck it. Halloween 6 shows Michael is controlled by some ritualistic cult, so if Michael is losing control here, then that would explain why he stares at his hand while committing this atrocity. But we're looking at this film alone. Plus, H2O or Halloween 7, ignore this plot, so did the remake, and a new 2018 remake sequel will most likely ignore this as well. So, let's say it's childlike serial killer curiosity. So for that incident, Michael has been institutionalized since then, and it's going to be determined soon by the court if he walks or goes to jail for life. Even his psychologist, Dr. Loomis, states that he's pure evil. By the time he gets to the hospital, Michael has escaped, along with some of the other inmates. Dr. Loomis knows Michael's intentions of returning to his hometown and could be a danger. So now it's his mission to stop him. Now, we're never told what happened within those walls for the 15 years that he was there. Did Michael kill anyone there? How did he imply he would return to his home? How did he even escape? How do you know he's a danger?
What was living behind that boy's eyes was purely and simply evil.
Scientifically sound. Well, he does kill a truck driver and strips him of his boiler outfit and burglarizes a hardware store of rope, a knife, and a Halloween mask, sculpted by William Shatner's face. Fun fact. I do have to share my appreciation for not forcing a kill scene on us, but instead a slow diagonal pan, tilt, to the victim hidden in the bushes. Very nice. We then switch gears over to our main character, Laurie Strode, played by the now famous Jamie Lee Curtis.
The homosexual lifestyle is not destructive to the fabric of American society!
Starting with Laurie swinging by the old Myers house because her dad is selling it, she starts noticing Michael stalking her and her group of friends as they leave high school and go home. Her friends pay no mind, however. Even if it is simple, look how menacing Michael looks when he just appears and then disappears. Most of the time. His design alone, a stiff, slow walk in everyday kitchen utensil, normal work clothes, and a mask. Simple in design, but lacking emotion. If you need a comparison, similar to Darth Vader's helmet, what makes these two masks intimidating is the lack of being able to read them. Even the eyes look like dark pits or voids of nothing. Hell, the movie emphasizes Michael's loud breathing under the mask, like a goddamn Dark Souls game. On top of that, this might sound strange, but the fact that the characters look like everyday people makes this movie scarier too. Let me explain. This has been a point I've mentioned in past reviews, but I do feel for a horror movie, a lower budget feel and look helps to see the believability of the situation, and that this could happen to you. I mean, when you cast modelly looking people or wealthy looking areas or houses, you lose me on the connection. I want to be scared that this killer could come after someone like me. I'm not claiming a film needs to be low budget, but does seem to help with the look and the feel of grittiness. I digress. Dr. Loomis expands his assessment on Michael.
I met this 6-year-old child with this blank, pale, emotionless face and the blackest eyes, the devil's eyes.
I don't know. Is Dr. Loomis such a great guy? He did park in the handicap zone. And he scares some kids. He's even pleased with himself. On one hand, less is more when creating suspense, and all we know is that Michael is off his rocker. And that's why a professional psychologist is scared of what he might do. But still, his reasoning after watching this movie again seems vague at best. His fears are given evidence when he finds the Haddonfield Cemetery is missing the gravestone belonging to Michael's sister. And this happens after a brief story by the gravekeeper.
I remember over in Russellville, old Charlie Bold, about 15 years ago. He got himself a hacksaw. And then he went back into the house, and he kissed his wife and his 2 children goodbye. And then he proceeded...
Where are we?
It's right over here.
Whoa, wait. Back up. So Charlie Bowles was another supposed murderer in Haddonfield, and we were just gonna pass right over that? Maybe it was meant to be another Halloween spin-off movie. So later that night, Laurie is left to babysit Tommy, who's afraid of the boogeyman.
I saw the boogeyman.
And even comically sees Michael mistaking him as the boogeyman, while no one else does. Wop wop. Laurie eventually has Lindsay dumped on her when her friend Annie decides to run off with her boyfriend for some alone time, but she dies comically in her car. Yeah, if you haven't noticed, the acting isn't always the best, especially the death scenes. Then Linda and her boyfriend show up to Annie's to party, but with her not there, what else could they do? Of course! Speaking of bad acting, even the sex is poorly represented. What's with all the wiggling? Where's the mighty thrust? And cut out that foot thing there, you have other things to be concerned with.
Go get me a beer.
But the beer winds up being the boyfriend's downfall, for he senses a disturbance in the force and finds... Yeah, okay. As cool as the death scene is, with beautiful lighting and Michael doing his creepy, curious observation like he did as a kid, how the hell is that tiny blade propping up a full-grown man? It's not even all the way. And then this. If we hadn't had the previous scene, I would find this a lot creepier. Like, is that the boyfriend? But we know who it is. We see where this is going. But why is he doing this? Is Michael playful?
Hello? All right, Annie.
Oh God, really? That cannot... No. Seriously? Let's try this.
First I get your famous chewing, now I get your famous squealing.
I'm pretty sure the sound of strangulation and pleasure are a little more different than that. And as much as it makes me titter, you still get a slap on the wrist, movie. That leaves Laurie left, who checks on everyone at Annie's, only to be stumbling on a murder house mystery ride. The movie builds with a soundtrack, shadows, and angles until we see this. I'm curious about Michael's need to represent his sister, as if he still feels for her. But he kills these kids, maybe because that's how he handles witnessing sex, which is when he killed his sister. It's my best guess, other than, gotta kill that one, then that one, and might as well that one, because why not? I sense a psychological complex of a child's brain with urges that got misdirected. Or maybe after 15 years, Michael turned 21 and was like, screw this joint, let's party! Even though the credits say he's 23. Which 6 plus 15 equals, math. But all that's overshadowed by 2 silly reveals. Laurie is attacked by Michael, runs off, and has her neighbor ignore her calls for help. Feels like this could have been some kind of social commentary about apathy. But instead she leads the killer to the kids. Nice job. She fights him, hiding in a closet with kick-ass lighting and a pissed-off Michael. She stabs him with no blood on it. And he comically lays there like he was too tired chasing her. So remember kids, if you're a good girl and you're studious and not horny, you can survive a maniac's killing spree. The kids' screams draw Dr. Loomis to the house and finds Michael is still alive. We do see a brief moment of what Michael looks like under the mask and, he's average and somewhat good looking, minus the eye stabbing earlier. I do gotta point out how horror movies today feel like they're trying just a little too hard. If it's too many filters or making the victims too pretty or even making the killers too scary looking and bulky, looking at you Halloween remake, when really, this is scary. An average guy could decide to hurt any average Joe like me? That's a lot scarier than, well, you have to look like this and that for this to be dangerous. Before Michael can go after Laurie again, Dr. Loomis fires on him 6 times until he falls over.
What's the boogeyman?
As a matter of fact, it was.
The story came full circle. But oh, Michael is still on the loose. We even end with several stills hearing Michael's breath, implying he could be anywhere, at any time, and our characters are not safe. And there we have it. A classic horror gem that made an impact back in its prime. But maybe a little bit tame. The kills and acting are laughable, the backstory seems oddly vague, even if less is more most of the time, and a lot of sections of the movie are pretty slow paced. Feels like a lot of padding. From Laurie walking down the neighborhood, or riding in a car with her friend, or just staring at houses. Not exactly a bad thing, but it does feel a little sluggish for how short the movie is. And a lot of techniques have become tropes. Still though, the soundtrack kicks ass. The angles, shadows, lighting, and especially Michael's presence still hold up today. The craft behind the movie still makes for a suspenseful experience, even if parts are dated. I feel like in today's culture it's not quite as scary, but for what it lacks in scares, it makes up for in suspense. And it's still enjoyable to watch around the holidays. But enough stalling, let's get to the scares. Mask point of view. Never really seen it done like this or as well or shocking. Think of creative scenarios from here. Sightings. Michael's appearances are unnerving, reminding you he's always watching and ever elusive. Ghost disguise. Like I said, would prefer if we the audience had to guess if it was the boyfriend or Michael, but the fact that it could be a killer in disguise, it's frightening. If you don't think so, watch this spider disguise catching its prey. Your nightmares tonight? You're welcome. The soundtrack. No more to say. It helps build suspense and plays when it needs to. The lighting and angles. They're utilized really well here to establish suspense. You can tell the lights are very specifically positioned in order to focus on the right thing. And that image of the house in the distance is still ingrained in my brain ever since I saw this movie for the first time years ago, just because of how dark and looming it looks. Michael's design. Mask, knife, demeanor, average looking Joe. Simple yet iconic. That is the art of horror. Thank you so much for taking this first step with me and checking out these classic titles. We'll continue to look at classics as well as other movie reviews. But in the meantime, have a happy Halloween.
Will shock your soul, seal your doom tonight. Spooky, scary skeletons speak with such a screech. You'll shake and shudder in